Okay, Job was one of the greatest men that ever lived upon this earth, in my estimation. He was so great in the sight of God that God told Satan there wasn't anybody on earth like him. So how many would like to have God brag on you a little bit like that? Even if it meant the ash box, would you let him brag on you? In Job chapter 19, just some powerful scriptures. Listen to these words. I'll give you a place you will just start. It's the most powerful, one of the most powerful chapters in the Word of God. Here's a man that's down and pressured. I just want to quickly begin with verse 1. And maybe some of you will understand some of the things as I preach tonight, some of the reasons why you have gone through many of the things that you've had to endure. Verse 1 on down, it says, Then Job answered and said, How long will ye vex my soul? Talking to those that were supposed to be his friends and comforters. How long will ye vex my soul and break me in pieces with words? You know, there are a lot of people that say sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. But that's not true. That's farthest from the truth. Job said there, and break me in pieces with words. These 10 times have ye reproached me. Ye are not ashamed that ye make yourselves strange to me, when they should have been friends. You know something? When we should be friends, many people, when Christians should be friends, we are picking at each other. We are too judgmental of each other. We're too critical of each other. You don't know in this building who will be in the ash box next. And ye are not ashamed that ye make yourselves strange to me. You know, there's people makes themselves strange to people. They treat each other indifferently. When if you just get to know one another and understand each other's personalities, you might understand that we're more alike than we are different. And I'm going to say something that some of you may not like. I'd say probably most of us won't like it. Many times, most people don't like things about other people because those people have got the same qualities that the person don't like them has got. And what it is, you don't like them because they're a whole lot like you. Please don't ask me to repeat that. Buy the tape or something. Oh, God, I got a cold wave on that, but I mean, that's just the truth. I have studied on this for 30 years. And I have watched situations, I've watched people develop, I've watched them get wound up and unravel. I've watched them become knit together and unravel like a ball of yarn. I've watched them come together, get their lives restored, and I've watched them fall apart. And I've studied these things. I'm a preacher, and I'm an analyzer, and I'm an analyst. And I go to the descriptive things in this word and search for answers as to why these things happen. We shouldn't make ourselves strange to each other. I know some of you are quiet, and some of you are timid, and some of you are loudmouth. Some of you say things outright. Some of you weigh your words. Some of you do. Some of you don't. We're all different. Some people are more open with their meanness, and others are sneaky. Well, I mean, there's a man down near where I live. who's very loud-mouthed, cusses every breath, can't say a sentence without 2 or 3 cuss words in it. And he's open with his meanness. I know him. You know, I like him. I don't like what he does, but I like him. But he's got a brother that I thought was my friend. But I found out that he's the same type of person, but he's sneaking with his meanness. And I've learned a lesson by that. When you hear the bad, you better raise the wool to make sure what's bad under there. Well, I'll move on. And be it indeed that I have erred, mine error remaineth with myself. Now listen to this. What he's really saying, Job is saying to these that are accusing him, if I've erred, if indeed I've done wrong. That's the first thing we say when we see somebody having a hard time. Honey, they must have done something awful, didn't they? Well, you don't have to do anything mean or awful or bad or sin to get in a trial and a test. Well, let's get that stuff out of our minds. What if I'd done you that way? Every time you got a prayer line and told me about your problem, I'd look at you and say, all right, what hellish thing have you done? Now, what would you do? Well, no, you wouldn't love me no more. You wouldn't want that. And I know some of you come up and want me to take a switch and wear you out, and I don't. I try to teach you. I try to share my life with you. I try to bear your burdens. I cry in the night many times for people that don't even know that I'm awake when they're sleeping. And be it indeed that I have erred, mine error remaineth with myself. If I've done wrong, Job was saying, it's me. It's within myself. Why would you want to accuse me? Why would you try to find fault with me? Why can't you be a friend and not a stranger? God, I knew I shouldn't have read this much. I'm going to preach for 2.5 hours here tonight. If indeed you will magnify yourselves against me, and that's what judges do. They were judging Job. They were lifting themselves up as if they were greater than he because they were indicating he'd made a bad mistake. And he said, well, if I did, it's just me. It's within me. Lord have mercy, I'm learning something. If indeed you will magnify yourselves against me and plead against me my reproach, God, listen to this. Oh, God. Know now that God hath overthrown me. God's allowed this. And he did. And hath compassed me with his net. Behold, I cry out of wrong, but I am not heard. I cry aloud, but there is no judgment. He hath fenced up my way that I cannot pass, and he hath set darkness in my path. I can't do anything about the situation I'm in, he's saying. I haven't done anything. There's no wrong in my life. If it is, I don't know it. It's within me. He hath stripped me of my glory and taken the crown from my head. He hath destroyed me on every side, and I'm gone. And mine hope hath he removed like a tree. He hath also kindled his wrath against me. And he counteth me unto him as one of his enemies. Have you ever heard a man of God talk such things? This is his innermost feelings. This is what Satan had put in him and told him. His troops come together and raise up their way against me and encamp round about my tabernacle. He hath put my brethren far from me, and mine acquaintance are verily estranged from me. My kinfolk have failed. Listen to this. My kinsfolk have failed, and my familiar friends have forgotten me. Brother, I've been in them places. It ain't an easy thing to go through. They that dwell in mine house and my maids count me for a stranger. I am an alien in their sight. I called my servant, and he gave me no answer. I entreated him with my mouth, signifying that because I'm so sick and covered with these boils, I've lost everything, and I'm not wealthy like I was, I don't have their respect anymore. My breath is strange to my wife. Though I entreated for the children's sake of mine own body, he cried and wept and done everything he could, had a graveyard full of his own children's bodies. Here's a man that's been down as far as you can go without dying. Yea, young children despise me. I arose, and they spake against me. All my inward friends abhorred me, and they whom I loved are turned against me. My bone cleaveth to my skin and to my flesh, and I am escaped with the skin of my teeth. Have pity upon me. Have pity upon me, O ye my friends. Don't put me on down. Don't judge me. Don't criticize me. Don't ridicule me. Don't hurt me anymore. Have pity upon me. Here's a man that can't see very well because of the boils, perhaps, that's trying to come on his eyeballs, and boils on his eyelids and eyelashes, and boils on his face and on his body all over, running infectious sores. Have pity upon me, my friends, for the hand of God hath touched me. Why do you persecute me as God, and are not satisfied with my flesh? And here's where my text is. I want to read all of that because I want you to see the context of a man that's hurting. This man existed. This man lived one time on this earth. And here's what he says. Oh, that my words were now written. Oh, that they were printed in a book. That they were graven with an iron pen and laid in the rock forever. For I know that my Redeemer liveth. Listen to this. Oh, thank you, Jesus. For I know that my Redeemer liveth, and that he shall stand at the latter day upon the earth. And though after my skin worms destroy this body. Listen to this faith talking. Though after my skin worms destroy this body, yet in my flesh shall I see God. Brother, that's faith talking. Whom I shall see for myself, and mine eyes shall behold, and not another, though my reins be consumed within me. I read almost the whole chapter to give you a text topic for a continuation of the message I started last night on settling things in your heart. And tonight, I want you to listen closely. I want to preach, by the help of God, about taking God, listen to this closely, taking God to his own limits. Taking God to his own limits. I want to be preaching tonight in this about how we can, by faith and listening closely and speaking and declaring what God has promised, we can move God to the point that he will say, that's enough, and give you the miracle that doctors say you can't have, that attorneys say you cannot have, that people say you cannot have. Oh God Almighty, I feel the anointing just sweeping my soul. Taking God to his own limits. Taking God to his farthest extremes in faith. You ever heard such thing? I wrote this down for myself when the Lord gave this to me, because I didn't know I'd get to share it with you. And I want you to listen closely, because the Spirit of the Lord spoke this into my heart, my spirit. And I wrote this down out of that. And this is just simply a testimony or a statement of testimony from my heart. We can never reach the end of our trials and tests and circumstances as long as we withhold something from God. It shows when you withhold that you are limiting God as far as trusting Him. You are limiting Him. When you withhold, you're showing you don't trust Him. There's a lot of people who won't pay tithing because they don't trust Him. They think they can do more with that 10% that they're withholding. But I'm going to tell you something. I'd rather give it to Him and make it on 90 than to try to make it by myself on 100. I'm serious tonight to you. Now, tithing's got very little to do with this message I'm going to preach. But boy, when you shut your bowels of compassion and you withhold because of anger, or you get upset, or you don't get your way, or whatever, you are only closing the door on yourself and as far as God's blessing. And when the door of blessing closes on you, then doors of oppression by evil spirits will come like a flood against you and your family. And the only hope you've got to make it is to have been in total compliance with God and willing, listen to this, willing to trust Him when it looked like you couldn't even make it. He'll make sure that you make it. Listen. Amen. Taking God to His own limits. I believe that God wants you to serve Him and love Him and trust Him in spite of any circumstance, any trial, any battle, any storm or situation. It does not matter at all what the storms are trying to indicate to you, what the tests and trials are trying to leave an impression with you. It doesn't matter as long as you have put God first. God, I felt that. As long as you have put Him first, and He knows that you know that you put Him first. Now, the reason there's empty seats here tonight in Cross Lanes is, let's just face it, people don't appreciate the Word and they don't put God first. There's no use to try to think up excuses. There's enough people in my ministry here to fill this building 5 times. I've had them in tent meetings, packed the tents in Huntington, Charleston, these areas. So let's just face the truth. People today, they want God, but not first. They want God in their own convenient way. But I'm going to tell you something. God has to be first in everything. That is in your personal life, in your family life, your relationship with your children, in putting Him first in your finances, putting Him first in your ministry. He's got to be number one. If Jesus is not first, he will go to the end of the line and be last. If you have to look at the telephone book to call somebody to find out what the regular service night is, then he's not first. If you have to read the TV guide to determine whether you're going to go to church or not, he's not first. And if you have any doubts in your heart about tithing and giving, he's not first. When he's first, when he's number one, when you build your life around him, when making your schedule, everybody's got to get in line because I'm going to put God in the prime time. When he's first, there will be trials, there will be tests, there will be circumstances, there will be situations that are going to try to indicate to you that everything negative, sour, bad, and everything else is all you're going to get. But when you get to the place that you have heard God precisely enough, oh Lord, and you have heard him speak his promises to you clearly enough, till that substance I've been preaching about called faith has formed in you enough, then brother and sister, listen. You will come to a place that you will get sick and tired of being sick and tired. You will get sick and tired of the one who's making you sick and tired. You will get sick and tired of Satan, of his tricks, of his challenges, of his deceptions, of his lies, of his hypocrisy, of his pretense. Oh, he's the great pretender. You'll get sick and tired of his acting ability. You'll get sick and tired of when he knocks on the door and says, I'm here again. And when you get to the place that you have put God in the position of number one, and no matter what it looks like, there's something you know. No matter what it seems like, there's something you heard him say. No matter what it feels like, there's something that in the back of your mind or in the depths of your spirit, you remember a promise he made you. It's then and there, when you have come to the place that you let Satan know, if I die, I die. But I want to tell you something, Satan. It may look like I've died, but if I die, I live. Woo! If I go down, I go up. If I go out, I go in. Woo! And you come to a place that you're so solid in the faith that you cause God to stand up from the throne, raise his eyebrows, and look down and say, well, what have we here? And you took God to the farthest extremes of his limits, to a place to where he has to move or lie, where he has to heal or let you die. And you're standing there and saying, don't make no difference to me. If I die, I'm still healed. If I go down, I'm still up. If it looks like I lose, I still win. I'm talking about Father God. I'm talking about saying, I heard what that doctor said. Yeah, I read that report. Friends come up and say, oh, I heard the bad news, honey. Just say, don't worry about it. Seems like you're worried more about it than I am. Yeah, I'm preaching on you. I'm in your lap, darling. I'm looking in the eyeballs, honey. I want you healed, children. I want to see you roll them sleeves up and say, where are you at, devil? I want to see you wear the belt of championship. I want to see you become a conqueror through Jesus Christ. I want to see you walk in divine health when sickness hits you. You don't run for shelter. You're like a duck. You enjoy water. Now sickness got to run off you like water off a duck's back. I'm talking about letting God see that you have found out what He knew you could become. I'm talking about taking this thing to the point that God has to stand up and say, they're going to do it. She's going to do it. He's going to do it. And cause God to have to say, back off, devil, that's as far as I can let this go. Because you're exercising faith, and hell has to back away, and the forces of darkness have to disperse. Because you have taken God, because of what He said, you believed it down to the wire, to the point of His limit. Well, Brother West, I don't know. You better know. Well, you know, Brother West, things like that don't work like that for me. You know why? You're so hard-headed. You're so full of moanings and groanings and complaints and whine. You whine like a cat. Is that too hard? Well, what? So you'll upset me. I know I'll stir that spirit up on you. You get that thing stirred up, it jumps out on your shoulder, and I'll knock him out. That's just the way it is. I have been told I'm an expert in the field of stirring up and uncovering devils. You see, I know when it's a spirit, and I know how spirits motivate flesh. And I know what spirits have done to some of you. And I'm here tonight to be in your corner. Now, I may go out and show you a few steps on how to take care of business. Just tell ringmaster to ring the bell and watch me for a few minutes. And then I'm going to the corner and you're going out. You're going to find out there's a real genuine devil in this world that's out to get you, and you need to know what he's doing, where he's at. You need to be able to pick him out of camouflage. You need to know that it's not so much that person, it's a spirit moving that person that's been doing those things to you. When you learn how to identify these things and start speaking to that spirit's going to have to obey, because let me tell you something. Jesus paid a tremendous price and undone what Adam did and made a way for us, stripped the devil of his power and authority, gave the authority back to us through his name. Now Satan has no claims on us, no right to even touch us. If he comes in your mind, you've got a right to say, get out of my mind, you hog, you. Get off of my mind, you devil, you. In the name of Jesus, and plead the blood. Square your shoulders back and tread upon scorpions and serpents and over all the powers of the enemy. Things happen when you settle something in your heart. After you settled it in your heart, you come to a place that you can take God to his limits. When you're standing there and every devil hell can regurgitate, is standing there to face you and to challenge you. And you're standing there saying, this is what God said. And you're going down, this is what God said. This is what God told me. This is what God promised me. And it seems like you're going on down and the demon powers are closing in on you. There comes a time when God will stand up and say, that's it. Back off, devil. Back off. Hallelujah. God, why? Because there's a little believer that's believing the promise right down to death, right down to the end, and won't back down, and won't move, and won't give up, and won't quit. Why? Because greater is he who is in us than he who is in the world. Somebody clap your hands. Somebody give Jesus a hand clap. Take a licking? Yeah. Take the best lick Satan can throw? Yes. Get knocked down? Yes. Be willing to die? Yes. Compromise? No. Back down? No. Give up? No. Move away from it? No. I don't know how. I've learned how to take God to his limits. Some of you don't even know it yet. Some of you have never even acknowledged it in your own mind. But what you have, you would, most of it, you wouldn't even have it if it wasn't for God and the ministry you're attached to. It's true. God lines things up for years. And then at his appointed time, he performs. Oh, I'd like to see every one of you be eyebrow raisers. Raise God's eyebrows. Well, I may die, but I won't move. I may die, but I won't back down. I'm steadfast. I'm rooted in God. I feel the wind hit me in the face. I hear the slurs behind my back. I hear the voices on the left side. I hear my accusers on the right. But my eyes on God. My eyes on Jesus. Lord, have mercy, and I'm not backing down. He said I could have it. If it's not mine, why did he put it in the book? If I can't have it, why did he tell me I can? I'm not backing down. God says I can have it. The doctor says I'm going to die. But God said I've been healed with his stripes. And raise the eyebrows of God and take him to the limits. I ain't a millionaire yet. But I'm talking like a trillionaire because I got to thinking, why talk about being a billionaire when there's a word named trillionaire? Somebody said there ain't a tree in there in the world. That's you. You just keep talking that if you want to. I'm walking where I want to walk. God can do more than pay a light bill, honey. God can fix you when you drive down the road. The eyebrows are raised everywhere, so there she goes. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to handle it. Take him to the limits. I like to think that God's probably sitting there tonight looking, watching you. Some of you going, what time you got? God's sitting there. There's one I don't have to worry about taking me to the limits. You that are serious, you that are determined, you that have settled it in your heart and in your mind, you that are persuaded fully, completely. Get ready, because here it comes. Take him to the limits. Take him to where he can't turn you down. Take him to where he can't say no. Don't you know that's what he wants? He gets you right there to where you're ready to step over, and somebody over there tells you to get your attention and you lose it. Take him where you've never taken him before. Believe him like you've never believed him before. Trust him like you've never trusted him before. Put him higher than he's ever been in your life before. Put him where he always has been. Whew. Take him to the limits. Take him to the place. It doesn't matter what people say. It doesn't matter what the family does. It doesn't matter what the world's got to say. You want to get this thing from God. You want the miracle from God. You want your vision fulfilled. You want your dreams to come true. Take him to the limits. His brethren threw him in a pit. His family stripped him of his clothing and his what looked like his honor and his dignity. They conspired against him. They lied on him. They were envious of him. They were jealous of him. And he wound up in a pit. I'd say that heaven was silenced as a little young man stood naked, nearly naked, down in a pit with his brethren running away with his coat of many colors soaked and sopping wet with animals' blood. Lies to his father. No doubt many angels, no doubt his own brothers thought, he'll give up on that dream now. But God knew he wouldn't. God knew that here was a man that would take him to the farthest extremes of his promise. Here's a man that won't stop at anything to get what I said is his. He'll remain holy. He'll remain righteous, but nothing can stop him. He was sold out and betrayed. He was accused of rape. He went to prison and wasn't guilty, but he was on his way to the extremities of God. On the known earth, there wasn't anybody had more than Joseph. Even the Pharaoh wouldn't make a decision without consulting with Joseph. He controlled the wealth of Egypt, most of the wealth of the world. He controlled the agriculture, farming, distribution of the foods. Under God's anointed direction was the one who was sustaining the world by the wisdom that his God gave him. And he brought that family, because of famine that had expelled him from their presence, that had conspired against him and lied on him and cheated him, brought them down. And he had come to such greatness in God, such appearance of glory and wealth, that even his own blood, kin, brothers, and family did not know who this royal man was, because he had taken God to the limits. And it was his ingenious anointing and his wisdom and wit from God that caused his family to be sustained and kept alive. And Joseph gave God the glory for it all and let them know that it was not your fault. I know you think you did this. Don't blame yourself. It was God using you to get me here. He used you to get me here like he's using me here to get to you. Here's taking God to the point of he says it's enough. And I know some of you having a struggle getting this to stick to your brain. Yeah, but now, Brother West, I just ain't worthy. Who told you you were? You think you're going to get this because you're so good? You think you're going to get this because you're so worthy? If you have any worthiness, it's because of his worthiness. If you have any goodness, it's because he's the only one good and you're attached to him. You take a shirt and put it on an outlaw, that don't make the shirt bad. Take the same shirt off of an outlaw and put it on a saint, and it's still the same shirt. Somebody say amen. Huh? Taking God to his own limits. Where you're able to say through God knowledge that I have no ability myself, I have no worthiness myself, I have no righteousness of myself. All I am is what you've made me. And know it in your heart. Believe it in your deep, deep innermost being. You'll get a lot more from God by going to God and say, you're holy and righteous. I don't even come to you because I think I'm any good. I come because I know you're the only one good, and you gave me permission. I want to thank you for it. And you'll start getting, the door will open right in, you'll go. But you come to God and say, now look here, God, I served you and I've been the best thing that ever happened to you. Why, he'll knock you in the head some. And you need some sense knocked into you. He ain't going to let you in his throne room to clutter up his throne room with that junk. Come out and tell him how good you are and how worthy you are and how what you done for him. And I'm this and I've done that. And oh, God, you know me, Lord. I'm telling you, God, I've been right there, God. You know, and the angel standing there said, listen to this guy. And the records are all there and everybody knows, in heaven knows. See, we may get by the deacon's board down here. We may slip something by the old preacher down here, but the records are full of it up there. Amen. Am I getting cold waivers? That's just the weather. You walk in there humbly and say, I'm coming in, Lord. Father, I'm coming in. And I'm coming in through your shed blood. And I'm coming in through your lenience and your mercy. And I wouldn't even dare to approach your throne by my own worthiness, but you told me I couldn't. You said you covered me with your blood, and I've done everything I know to do in salvation to put you on and let you be first in my life. Oh, Lord, next thing you know, his big arms wrap around you, and he'll say, what do you want, darling? What is it you need? Because he's our Father. He's the rescuer of our souls, the preservers of our lives. And he loves it when his kids are thankful for their bicycles. He loves it just like you love it when you buy your kids something and they say, gee, Mom, thanks. Mom, it's just what I wanted. Thanks. And they go out and ride that bike around the house and come back in and just say, I had to thank you again, Mom. But you take a spoiled brat to get on a brand new bicycle, ride around the house and say, I don't like it, it ain't the right color. You ought to smack a far out of it. I'll tell you one thing, if I'd have said that to my mommy, I'd have seen stars. They may not have been pointed stars. They'd have been them little round things. I've seen them many times, honey. God wants to be appreciated. All he wants is to be thanked. All he wants is to be appreciated and given credit for being the sustainer of your life. If you will do that, there's nothing he won't do for you. I'm telling you, you won't get through thanking him for one thing. There'll be another something hit you right in the back. He'll just be a blessing you the way you turn. And the more people hate you and fight you and get jealous of you and envious of you because of God's blessings, the more he says, pay no attention to them, child. You're mine. You're bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Don't pay any attention to him. Don't feel bad. You're a child of the King, and he'll just bless you every way you turn. It's true. If you had the means to buy your precious little son or daughter a bicycle, would you want to make them be deprived of that bicycle because you wouldn't want them to go out in public and people see what a blessing they got? You wouldn't buy that to torment them with it and aggravate them to death, and they sit there and look outside of that bicycle chained to a post and they can't ride it because Dad's afraid of what somebody might think about it. I have people come, they'll buy them a new car, and they'll come to me and say, trying to give me an excuse. I said, brother, let's just pray for me that I can get me some kind of an old car. And I don't pray that. I don't say, God, give them some kind of an old jalopy of some kind. I don't do that. Brother, I'll tell you, I'll pray for God to give you a Lincoln Continental or a Buick or a Rolls Royce or something. Why not? We're not talking to some poverty-stricken statue. After all, he's not a statue piggy bank with a few cents down inside. He's got a city 1,500 miles square. Walls of jasper 200 and some feet thick. Wide enough to build an interstate around the top of the walls of the city of God. Streets made out of gold, pure gold. It ain't nothing, it's 99% pure. It's pure gold. Glory to God. Go tell him he's got to go cheap on his kids. You know what he might do to that devil? He say, you go fly your kite while you can. You don't dictate to me what I'll do for my kids that believe in me and trust me and know I'm their sustainer and I'm their supporter. I'm the one that backs them in their life. Is it quiet in here? Is it just me? Hallelujah. Glory to God. Thank you, Jesus. Here, many times during the day, I stop. And I just stop. I say, I just want to praise you. I just want to thank you. I just want to tell you I love you and I can't make it without you. And I need you so much. I got to have you. Lord, if you look out there and ain't nobody around and I'm on a street corner and I'm just doing something like this right here, don't worry, I ain't on nothing. Except the rock. I'm serious. I said I really am serious. I ate over at the Char House the other day. Whoo! What a good place to eat. I got down there where that roast beef was. They had so many pieces of it cut so thick and so juicy. I stood down and said, oh, thank God. And I commenced to loading my plate. When I saw that my truck wouldn't haul it, I got me another plate. I saw the gazers, they were going. And it looked like I was going to get it all. But you see, I knew something maybe some of them didn't know. My father growed that cow somewhere. And I'm going to guarantee you, when I left the Char House, I was feeling pain. And that's a fact, son. Somebody talked about stopping somewhere and getting ice cream. I said, let's go home. Let me enjoy my misery. Onward we go. Triumphant and victorious in Jesus' name. Taking God, our Father, our supplier, our backer, our source, to the limits, to his limits, to where he can't let it go any farther, till he's got to move. Do you understand what's being said here tonight? You're going to see some dark times. There'll be some storms in the midst of getting this that you've been begging God, pleading for God to do for you, asking God to do, believing God to do. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be adversaries. There's going to be dark times. It's going to look like you ain't going to get it. It's going to look like you ain't going to make it. It's going to look like you're going to die. It's going to look like that doctor told the truth. You're not going to live. But if you've heard him tell you one promise, if you've heard him tell you that he'd do something for you, if you heard it and you got that substance called faith, you can take him to the point that he says, that's enough. And the miracle's yours. Let me give you an illustration. There was a man over 100 years old. Some say Isaac was around 17 or 18. Some say he was 30. I don't really know exactly how old he was. I just know he was a grown boy. And here's a child that God has spoken to this old man and his wife of 90 years old and said, you're going to have this son.
made a promise and said, in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Now, they'd already had one son, but it wasn't a son to God. God never acknowledged him as a son. I'm going to show you how I know. Because many years later, when this boy was grown, Abraham perhaps was sitting there one day, and the Lord spoke to him, and he said, Abraham, he said, behold, here I am. Or, behold, I'm here. Wonder where he'd have to run you down at. I'm preaching tonight. There's a message right there. When God calls, are you there where you can hear him, or are you so far gone off, his voice is faint? Well, what was that? Sounded like somebody hollered at me. So caught up in everything in the world. But boy, the Lord just spoke. He said, Abraham, he said, behold, Lord, here I am. Just that quick. God calls, we answer. Instant, in season, out of season. He shouldn't have to run you down the switch with a rope, lasso you. If he's first, when he calls, you'll say, yes, Lord, I'm here. I don't care if I'm in Kroger's. If he says, do something, okay, Lord, I'm right now, I'm ready. I blocked off the whole meat department in Piggly Wiggly's with a prayer line. I run into a lot of black folk down there. They love me. Oh, Lord, how much that comes, Brother West. Form a prayer line. I was laying hands on them. They was falling back on the pork chops. I'm telling you they were. I'm being honest with you. They was plumb back in the meat coolers. I love them black folks. We had church every time we get together. Of course, I'm colorblind spiritually. I don't see black and white, red, yellow, and brown. I was in Kingsport, Tennessee one time, blocked the whole aisle of the Kmart off. I know they didn't like it, but I couldn't help it. It wasn't me doing it. All I was doing was walking along, pushing the buggy. I come over and get something for the tent. And I heard people behind me say, I know that's him. Ain't nobody looks like that from behind like him. So I'm recognizable from behind. I turned around and I spoke to them, and here they started coming, saying, oh, we watched you on television. Would you pray for me? And I go, you know how wide them Kmart aisles are. Honey, I'm telling you right now, we made a parking place out of that aisle there with buggies. Well, we was having church out there, and I was praying for it, and I noticed, man, blue lights was flashing over there, and there wasn't nobody showing up hardly. We was having church. I prayed for them, there wasn't nobody else prayed for it. I got my buggy and moved on. I was down in G.C. Murphy's one time, G.C. Murphy's in Williamson, and Sister Dixie came up to me. I hadn't seen her in a while, and she said, oh, Brother West, called up and went in the store. Brother West, I was waiting down here. She come over there, bless her little old darling heart. She came over, she said, I've been awful sick, honey. I want you to pray for me. I said, all right. I said, raise your hand right there. And buddy, she raised her hands, and I laid my hand. I just barely snibbed her, just barely touched her. She went to shouting backwards, and it wasn't just few. She was over in the clothing department. She fell out. I don't know where she went. I'm telling the truth. It looked like one rack of clothes. Everything on it had something invisible in them. There was dozens, probably 50 or more people gathering in the aisles and watching. About 10 minutes, here comes Sister Dixie. Her hair looked like somebody had blown up a hornet's nest on top of her head. Here she come out of the clothes department, talking in tongues, healed by the power of God. Healed. Told me later, she said she was healed there. I was coming up walk there one time waiting on Marcia. She was shopping, and I was window shopping. Didn't have much money, so I was just waiting on her window shopping. Now you go through them, you see yourself in them windows too. And I was just killing time. It was the first It was the first of the month. Everybody got their checks. Mall wasn't nowhere around. Didn't have no malls in. All it has them little shops downtown. Lord, there was thousands of people in the streets of Williamson. You couldn't stir them. There wasn't a park place nowhere. And I stand there waiting on Marcia on the street, and there was hundreds going by. And here come this woman up the street. When she saw me, she had a abscessed tooth. Her jaw was so swelled it looked abnormal. It was so swelled that she talked with a whiff. She would holler, "Brother Webb! Brother Webb!" Weighed about 380 or 90 pounds, close to 400. Oh, God. Healthy, honey, except for a toothache. Came up there, she said, "I want you to pray for my tooth." If that, she would tell me all this. I said, "All right," and I laid my packages on somebody's car. My package, it was Marcia's. I was just the delivery boy. I laid them on the car, and I told her, I said, "Raise your hands." Well, I tell you, listen, if I had it to do over, I wouldn't have done that. I'm telling you, in about 3 minutes, I was in trouble. I'm serious. She raised her hands up, and I barely touched it, and I had a hold of her hand because I thought something was going to happen. Honey, I'll tell you, when I laid my hand on her, if lightning struck, it wouldn't have been no more powerful. If God had hit her with a hammer, it wouldn't have hit any harder. She went to talking in tongues and crying and praising God and trying to fall out. And I had a hold of her hand and was holding her hand. You were trying to hold 300-something pounds, trying to fall out all by yourself. It looked like we were dancing. I'm serious. I looked at that after I got done going home. I thought, "Oh, my God." And I was trying to get her attention to pull her out of it. But I'll tell you something, honey, when people's really going into it, you ain't going to pull them out of it. We waltzed all over the street. We waltzed all over the sidewalk, son. All I was trying to do was to stabilize the poor soul and to keep me from being arrested for assault or something. We done that till my arms got so tired. So help me God, they got so tired they feel like they're going to fall off or something. Finally, I got her to simmer down. And you know what God done while I was waltzing? God healed her tooth. God healed her jaw. She just said thank you and went on. Boy, I'll tell you one thing I'll never will forget, feeling the relief. My God. The places I've been. Whew. Well, our little old brother Stan, you know, you've heard him preach here. He's down in North Carolina one time. We was in a tent meeting. He was traveling with just a kid then. He just wanted to do something for God. He walked out there on the street corner in North Carolina. There was a blind man there. He said, "You care if I pray for you?" That old blind man said, "No." He said, "Well, raise your hand." There stood that blind man with his hand straight up in the air on the sidewalk. And Stan with his hands on him. And the police pulled up. They thought he was robbing that old blind man. They did. Ask him about that, Brother Marvin. But I think the look that Brother Stan gave him is that Barney look. When he turned around and looked, the Lord had to work a miracle, honey. Oh, what we've tried to do for Jesus. When Abraham sat there that day, he heard God say, now listen to this, listen closely. Even though years later, Hagar, Sarah's handmaid or slave, had a child for Abraham and Sarah with Sarah's permission. In fact, she's one thought it up. The world ain't been the same since. It reminds me of religious denominations today that think they can do this thing better than God. She came to Abraham with this big idea. Since I've not had you a child, not been able to have you a son, an heir, let me give you Hagar, my handmaid. And Abraham said, okay. Went right along with it. Oh, God, but the world ain't rested since, son. Ishmael was born. All these dissensions in the Middle East, all these squabbles and wars, all of them over there, these in the Arab nations, from Saddam Hussein to Colonel Gaddafi, and all the rest of them over there. Listen to me, I'm telling you the truth. The ones I'm talking about that they gather around in Palestine there and they get inside the building and they're sitting around the table trying to get peace with guns on each other. You know, go outside and there they are with guns on each other trying to sign peace treaties. Well, about every one of them is nearly crazy. And what it is, they're so spirit motivated. And most of it's because of Ishmael. And it all wound up in the flesh. There's only one. Now listen to this closely. I'm not trying to sound sarcastic. Those people are going to have revival too. Jesus is going to reveal himself to those nations. Because he told Abraham that he would bless Ishmael. God, they're blessed. They got more money than anybody else in the world. They get over there and they most of the time they don't have these hard-top roads like we got, but they'll go down that road 125 miles an hour in a Rolls Royce on a dirt road. There's one of them sheiks driving a $500,000 car 125 miles an hour down a dirt road, and all you can see, it looks like a sandstorm. They're blessed. They're wealthy. God said he'd make them a great nation. Yeah. I feel like I'm in trouble. But that's all these dissensions, all these contentions, all these squabbles because of what happened in the flesh. See, God didn't need Sarah's ideas. Simply because she's getting up in years didn't mean God couldn't come through. She just thought she was getting too old and I better do something about this. And Abraham played right along with it. We've all been in trouble since. But watch this closely. Here's how God looks at things. Here's how God looks at things. When he came to Abraham, he said, Abraham said, behold, here I am. He said, take thine son. You don't hear Abraham say, which one, Lord? Can I take my choice? I'll take Ishmael. No. He said, take thine son, thine only son. So with God, only one son is recognized. And it's the one in whom the seed is established. The promise is settled. Into the land of Moriah, to a mount, to a place that I'll show you of, and offer him a burnt offering to me. The moment God told him to do this, Abraham made up his mind. He settled it in his heart. I will do it. Many times God will ask you for the thing you love the most. He will ask you to sacrifice, to deny, to put him first in front of your family, your friends, your job. And most of you know that the happiest times of your life were when you were submit to this and put him so first that you put your family in his hands and trusted him. You put your finances in his hands and trusted him. Do you think that you're going to prosper by not doing it now? He's got to be first. Abraham was getting ready to take God to the farthest limit he'd ever been taken. This is a man that God said is the friend of God. My friend Abraham. Come on. He got his servants. They got the wood. They got the vessel with coals of fire. They took their little donkeys and the servants, and they started out. 3 days later, Abraham saw the place God told him about. It was a type of the resurrection. For 3 days, Isaac was a dead man in the heart of his father. For 3 days, it was settled. He was as good as dead to Abraham. For 3 days, it was finished. Hear me? I'd say Abraham's heart was crushed and broken because probably in his mind, fighting spirits like we do, he'd done seen his funeral every day since God told him. Don't you know when he made up his mind that he would kill his son and offer him a burnt offering to God, that his heart was tore all to pieces? They got to that base of the mountain. They got into that territory. Abraham looked at his servants and he said, you stay here. I and the lad, listen to this, are going yonder in that mountain to worship and shall return again. Signifying, we're going, I and the lad are going, I and the lad are coming back. But that wasn't what God said. God said, take him up there, take his life, burn him on an altar, leave his ashes there. That's what he was saying. And none of this stuff, we're going and we're coming back. So what was talking there? It was faith talking. This old man was getting ready to take God even to the place beyond raising eyebrows. Up on that mountain they went, carrying the wood and the coals of fire. When they got there, Abraham built an altar. And they put the wood upon the altar. And then Isaac said, Father, behold the wood and the coals of fire. But Father, where is the lamb for the sacrifice? Isaac stood there, not a little boy, a grown man, but submitted to his father. And Abraham said, God will provide himself a lamb for the sacrifice. Now, I've had people come up and say, well, Brother West, that was fulfilled in a few minutes when that ram was caught in the thicket. It didn't say ram. It said God will provide himself a lamb. not a ram. Go read it. That lamb God was going to provide was Jesus Christ himself. And I'm going to show you something here. How an old man took God to the extremities of faith. Ain't no wonder God's that's my buddy. Ain't no wonder God's that's my friend. He got Isaac and put him upon that wood. And reached no doubt up under his robe and pulled that sharpened knife glistening in the morning sun. I'd say that tears were running down Abraham's cheeks. I'd say tears were running down the side of Isaac's jaws. As a humble son never lifted a finger to resist the obedience of his father toward God. As he raised that knife, he took God to the limits, to the extremities. That's as far as God could let it go. And God spoke from heaven and said in so many words, that's enough. That's far enough. He said to Abraham, he said, hold the hand, lay not thy hand on the lad. I'd say that angels were standing there. Heaven, you could probably heard a breath as God probably stood up, no doubt, from the throne and spoke to the elements and said, Abraham, Abraham, don't touch him. You know, most of the church world don't know what Abraham done there that day. He took God to the farthest extremities. That's as far as God has ever been, to the end of where enough comes up. Lord have mercy. Why did he do it? Because if he'd have let Isaac died, if he'd have let Abraham have killed him, he had a promise to Abraham. Abraham was saying this, I'm going to do exactly what you told me. But I'm going to tell you something, sir. You're going to do exactly what you told me. God, help me to tell this to the world. God, the world needs to know. Because Isaac and Abraham went there together. But Abraham didn't go there just for a sacrifice. He went there to see a resurrection. He was going to endure the heartbreak of running a knife into the heart of his son and burning him on the wood on an altar and smelling the flesh of his precious beloved son burning and filling the air around with the stink of the burning flesh before God. Then, here's what he showed. Here's where he took God to the extremities of faith, to God's farthest limits. He was going to step back from the fire when it all simmered down and nothing was left but the remaining ashes and bones of his beloved, sweet, precious, darling son. And either God was going to raise him from the dead, or Abraham was going to walk off that mountain knowing that his God was a liar. That's why God said, not just Abraham, but he said, Abraham, Abraham, I've got to get your attention. you touch that lad. Don't lay your hand on your son. If God had let it went through, he'd had to come there, and Abraham was going to stand out there and say, there it is, I did my part. What you going to do? Are you who you say you are? Is your promise to me real? Do I have any options as to whether I'll believe you to be the heir of the world? Or are you going to fail here now? You talk about God brought to the end of it all. Some of you are looking at me strangely back to here. I know exactly what I'm preaching. I was ordained from the foundation of the world to know this, to preach this. You say, I've never heard anything like it. I never have either. God told me the other day. He spoke to me the other day. Told me. Because Abraham knew that if he killed Isaac, God, Paul said, would have to raise him from the dead. Abraham was going to get ready to stand there, his heart broken from killing his son, burning him on an altar. But he was going to watch God bring that flesh back out of them ashes. Stand his son back upon this earth without a mark or a blemish, because God cannot lie. That's the extremities of faith. May I say this also to you that are here can hear this, you that are listening to this tape anywhere in the world it's aired at any time. That there was no way that he could sit there in heaven on the throne and let Isaac die, because Jesus Christ would not have had to come if Isaac had done it. But Isaac couldn't do it. Isaac didn't have the power to raise himself from the dead. And God knew that the lamb that was coming, that Abraham prophesied about, God will provide himself a lamb for sacrifice. God knew, that lamb was coming, and that in all things he would have to die and be the first one to raise from the dead, that in all things, Paul said, he might have the preeminence or be first in all things. If thou canst believe, he said, all things are possible to him that believeth. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it. I will do it. Anything you ask for in prayer, not doubting, but believing, you shall have it. If he has to part an ocean, if he has to put his hand over the sun and stop its light from shining, oh God, it does not matter what has to be done. He will keep his word. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. Somebody praise God just a moment here. Somebody praise God just a moment here. There's an awesomeness of God here tonight. I'm talking about the greatest being in existence. I'm talking about the creator, the originator of all things. I'm talking about, glory be to God, the designer of all things. I'm talking about the one who's saying to you tonight that you can't ask as big as I can respond, that you can't think as big as I can do. All you've got to do is have faith in me and trust me and believe me. When Job stood there, and I'm closing, I've got to find a place to close. When Job sat there in that ash box and told them in his response, I know I'm in bad condition, boils all over my body, infectious running boils all over my body,
But he said, though after the skin worms have destroyed this flesh, this body, he said, yet in my flesh I shall see God. My God, it must have raised the eyebrows of God. And he said, I'll see him for myself and not another. He was saying, it doesn't matter what it looks like. I know my Redeemer's alive. And after he's tried me, I shall come forth, and took God to the extremities of his limits. That's what brought that whirlwind and God in it. Said, stand upon your feet and be a man, Job. Turned his captivities when he prayed for his friends that scoffed him, scorned him, and accused him. Kid, do you have that much nerve? Do you have that much daring courage? Do you? Do you have what it takes to take God to the limit? Watch him. Not because he so much has to. He will because he has to. But because he wants to. I can feel the hand of Satan. Praise him a moment. As the tempter presses me so, he has been before my Father, asking permission to tempt me more. Oh, somebody praise the Lord. Though God slay me, I'm gonna trust him. I shall live, come forth like gold, 'cause I know that he's still living, 'cause I can feel him in my soul. Oh, I look all around me, but his face 1,000 times I could not see. But I know when for me it's all over, he has prepared a little place for me. Somebody praise our wonderful God. Oh, God, slay me, I'm gonna trust him for my family, for my kids, for everything I have. I shall thee come forth like gold, 'cause I know that he's still living. And I feel him in my soul. Oh, many times I've looked all around me, but his face I could not see, but I know when it's all finished, he's got a place in heaven set aside for me. Oh, Lord, have mercy. This is the way I feel. And though God slay me, I'm gonna trust him. Oh, I shall thee come forth like gold. Oh, Jesus, 'cause I know my Redeemer is living, for I feel him down in my soul. I know that many times you, like I,